What does TUMS and your health have anything to do with your wealth?
You're listening to Wealth Talks with Dr. Tom and John McPhee. We welcome a special guest back to the podcast today. We last interviewed him in February of this year. Mr. Doug Grant, he's the founder of Optimal Health Systems in Arizona. He was the first nutritionist hired by an NBA team, worked with the Phoenix Suns, the Miami Heat, the San Antonio Spurs, and he's worked with Olympic athletes as well. Welcome back to the show, Doug.
Thanks. Excited to be here.
Well, we're so excited to have you back because, here at Wealth Talks, we are talking every week about what it is that can make us healthier and wealthier, which are really synonymous terms because from the Old English word will, that is where health and wealth came from. So you really can't separate them. And so we're really glad to have you back because we're, as you know, in the middle of this pandemic and there's some things that we can do that can help us be healthier nutritionally. And there's some things that we need to avoid. And one of those, as we talked about, kind of hinted at it earlier, is the widespread use of antacids. Can you fill us in a little bit about that, Doug?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that leading off with this pandemic and it causing all kinds of issues is really a great way to look at it because what we're learning is that people that normally don't have problems of anxiety, indigestion, stress, heartburn, things like that they might, go along life and not really have the issue, are having issues like that during this time because of just the different energy and the vibrations that are out there and the stresses that are in the world that are just so different than anything we've ever known. And so the rate of people having these types of concerns and issues is a lot higher. And just that by itself makes us want to, or, creates a need for us to look at it. But the problem is, and just to kind of start off with, is that we're having a problem with digestion. And so we call it indigestion, right? So It's just a digestion issue and it's causing stress in our life, or at a minimum, it's just causing things to not be as smooth and not feel as well. And we have this indigestion. And one of the things that we've been taught, I think, as a culture that is wrong is we should block this indigestion, from happening at all costs. And many times what we're doing is the opposite of what we should be doing. That the reason we have indigestion is because we're not digesting our food because of the stresses and the foods that we're eating and everything going on. And so we are blocking, and that's what, as you'd mentioned, antacids or acid blockers, so Rolaids, TUMS, Pepcid, any of these things, these are drugs that are blocking digestion. So it's taking away the pain, but it's stopping the process. And stopping that process is actually causing more problems down the road.
I'm glad you brought the problems down the road up because these antacids now have been linked with negative cognitive function and brain health, serious kidney and renal issues. They're connected to serious cardiovascular issues, deficiencies in B vitamins, calcium, iron, magnesium, and these are things that we need to function healthily and not have to spend a lot of money down the road with emergency procedures to intervene.
Absolutely. And, there was a new study that came out in the American Journal of Gastroenterology. And what they showed was that the problems stem from everything that you just mentioned, but the problems also are that we are having issues when it comes to our immunity, and that they did a study with a group that I believe, it was 85,000 people, and of these 85,000 people that had issues with indigestion, they found that the majority of them tested positive for COVID-19 versus a group that didn't have indigestion problems. And they started narrowing it down, and they found, wait a second, the common denominator here is that people that are taking antacids or acid blockers are at much higher risk for COVID or any type of virus, flu, influenza, than those that don't take them. And that started this study. And it was just absolutely amazing that they've had this breakthrough that your risk for disease, but specifically at this time in the world, COVID, goes up dramatically if you take antacids or acid blockers. And it's just another reason why we really want to take a look at this.
So that's fascinating.
So that brings up an interesting phenomena, because COVID tends to hit people in their sixth decade and higher. And we, in that decade, those decades, already have a reduced acid level in our gut. So what is happening to these people then that are popping TUMS or Rolaids frequently? Is that then, is this study suggesting that that's putting them at risk to a higher incident of complications from COVID?
100%. That's exactly what the study showed, because what antacids and acid blockers do, as you mentioned, is they stop the acid production, either neutralize it, like TUMS and Rolaids, or stop it completely, like the Pepcid, Intagment, and those types of things, which allows any type of bacteria or virus to get past the gut, get past the stomach, and get into the system. A lot of people don't realize that our acid in our stomach, its job is not to digest food. Its job is to be our first line of defense against viruses, bacteria, or any type of antigen that's coming into the body. And so it is setting people up for a greater risk of COVID or any type of virus or bacteria. And it needs to be fixed. And it's something that can easily be fixed, because the problem goes back to non-digestion of food. You only are taking these things because you have indigestion.
So it's so easy to reach for the TUMS or the Rolaids or any of these other products that have been, held up as the cure for this. And yet, aren't the side effects of those, isn't the FDA warned not to take those products more than about 14 days out of the year?
Yeah, exactly. And, what's funny is that all these things that are getting noticed or talked about in the press, as you all know, I think everyone understands this right now, that what we're being told by watching TV or looking at social media and those types of things are the things that the large corporations or groups are wanting us to see, and not necessarily the things that are most important for our daily health and well-being. And one of the things that happened a few months ago, kind of under the radar, is that they pulled Tagmin, Zantac, Pepcid, all of these drugs off the market because of the extreme risk they found for things like heart disease and serious cardiac issues. And but yet it went unnoticed.
That's completely under the radar. Yeah, completely under the radar.
And then they put them back, like you mentioned, but said, "Oh, you should only take them extremely sparingly and only in times of need." And I've seen vehicles that people buy these giant containers of antacids, and they're there, and they take them like candy. Like they every time they grab something to eat, they grab an antacid, and it's absolutely crazy to think that people are going to, if they take these things, they're going to take them, once a month, for the year, and it's just, we know better, and but the answer really, like we mentioned, it is common sense. And people, if you realize that the problem is indigestion, non-digestion of foods, you only have two options to get rid of the pain. The first option is what we are discussing that most people do, and that is they stop digestion. They stop it with the acid blockers and neutralizing them, which is the worst thing to do. And we think we've laid out, the major factors here. And I want to just really impress upon your audience what we're talking about one last time, and that is this, is that if you stop digestion by taking antacids or acid blockers, you're setting yourself up for an extremely higher chance of getting a virus or a bacteria, and mainly COVID-19 with its side effects, as the research study that just came out in July of this year from the American Journal of Gastroenterology said. And number two, what's happening is when you stop digestion is you are causing the deficiencies in that you had mentioned at the first of mineral deficiencies, vitamin deficiencies, absorption of nutrients that lead to other problems. So we know that stopping digestion is not the answer, that's absolutely the opposite of what you should do.
That's like putting sugar in your gas tank. It'll stop your car really quick, but that doesn't solve the problem. So there is a solution to this that makes more sense, that brings health, that is less costly in the long run. And what is that, Doug?
It's to finish digestion. And I think that the audience really should be able to come up with that answer, saying, okay, stopping digestion causes problems, but if I finish digestion, that makes sense. I'm going to get the nutrients delivered from the food. I'm going to be able to have health. I'm going to be able to increase my immunity. And so how do I finish digestion? Now, finishing digestion comes back to just taking a look at the food. If your food is natural from the earth and it's raw, it contains enzymes in it that digest it. If we cut an apple, it starts to rot. A lot of people say, well, it's actually going bad. Well, no, it's digesting itself. When you take a bite of that apple, the nutrients are delivered to the body because the enzymes are present in the apple. So any raw food has the ability to digest itself, which eliminates the problem of indigestion. But cooked and processed food no longer has the natural enzymes that should be in it, and thus we have indigestion. We don't digest our food well. And you mentioned up into our sixth decade, our body's ability to digest food diminishes because we abuse our own enzymes. We abuse that system in the body, our digestive system, and so it gets worse. And so as we get older, people are usually more prone to take things to get rid of indigestion. And the answer is that simple: is add back the enzymes that you chose to take out when you eat cooked and processed food. And if you just look at it that way, that you're not even supplementing. I mean, I formulate. We've been doing formulations and supplements for doctors or patients and athletes for 3 decades. And this one issue, I don't even call it supplementing, because all it's doing is being responsible.
Sure.
You're choosing to take the nutrients out, the enzymes out of the food, by cooking the food, and we all eat cooked food, sometime or another. Then be responsible and add the enzymes back by simply taking an enzyme supplement when you eat cooked food. That will digest the food for you. You don't have indigestion. You deliver the nutrients, as you had mentioned, and the problem is fixed. So it's an absolutely easy fix to do, and it'll help rid the body of those concerns and increase your immunity.
So are we talking about like a probiotic, or are we talking about a natural food like licorice or aloe vera or something like that? What is it that we need to be putting back into our body so that it can function properly?
There's a lot of great things that can help digestion that you just even mentioned. Even a lot of people will have some vinegar and stuff at the meal and that. And all those things aid in the ability for the body to digest food. But the number one answer is specifically plant enzymes, the enzymes that are naturally occurring in the food that we destroy when we cook and process the food. So you want to look for a plant enzyme supplement, not animal enzyme, but plant enzyme supplement, the enzymes that are naturally in the plants. And those products will digest the food for you. It is always best to have one that combines enzymes and probiotics, because there's really a couple stages of digestion. One is you need to break the food down. That's what enzymes do. And number two, you need to deliver those nutrients from the gut into the bloodstream. And that's what probiotics help to do.
Okay.
So having a digestive supplement that has plant enzymes and probiotics in that one capsule is the best way to go about it.
Interesting. So this solution that you're talking about here, you even mentioned the word common sense. The term common sense here. And this reminds me of our conversation back in February when we were talking about COVID. We didn't know a lot about it yet. It was just kind of coming onto the scenes when we were talking for the last interview. But the solution today remains the same as what you were talking about back in February. Keep your immune system strong. Do the things that we know are good to keep the immune system strong, to bolster your ability to fight off diseases and viruses. And that's the same message that you have here for people today. Take care of your digestion, keep your immune system strong in order to be able to fight these things off.
Absolutely. And, you hit the nail on the head. And because if you look at the research, now that we're learning so much more, we've been into this now for over 6 months with the whole COVID, they're really trying to look at the patterns between who gets COVID and who doesn't. We obviously know the elderly get it more than that, but you had already pointed out that as we get older, one of the things that we do is reach for antacids and acid blockers more, and so it puts us at higher risk. But the thing that's becoming a common denominator across the board as to why some people are asymptomatic and don't even know if they had COVID or not, and the people that get really sick really comes down to digestion that we're finding out. And it's really an amazing thing, whether they're 20 years old or 60 years old, that people that digest their food or people that have excess body fat because they're consuming too many calories and their body can't digest the food, they're overloading their body, that those groups have a much higher risk of complications from COVID. And I really kind of want to, point that out really quick, if you don't mind, is that I get real tired of the we have so many positive cases of COVID out there. I really could care less about that because it doesn't matter about the positive cases. It matters about the cases that have complications.
Yes.
And that's what we should focus on. And if you look at the research onto that factor, really it comes back around to eating healthier, building the immune system, and digesting our food, no matter the age. And people that do that have a much less risk of having complications from COVID. And that you're right. We're kind of circling back from what we were talking about in February, but nailing this down even more to digest your food, don't overconsume food, and you're going to be at your best, chance or highest chance to be able to not have complications from COVID. Because it's not if you're going to get it, it's pretty much when, and will it affect you or not.
Well, that knowledge, that research is worth its weight in gold, because the fear that has been propagated about this throughout this pandemic has caused all kinds of other complications, like you hinted at earlier, and one of those is our inability to digest our food. And, all of that fear is pushing toward a vaccine when the solution could be a whole lot easier if we would just take care of our bodies now. And then we wouldn't have to worry about someone else fixing it for us. So what is it that Optimal Health Solutions has that people can get these plant-based enzymes and probiotics? Because, I know when I go to the health food store or the pharmacy where the supplements are and the probiotics and enzymes, it's kind of chaos. And I know you've spent so much time, like you said, 3 decades doing this. What does Optimal Health Systems have to offer?
Well, what we have to offer really is our number one, the very first formula I made back in the 90s was based on this information. We need to help people when they eat cooked and processed food. So we created a product called Optimal Digestion. Optimal Digestion is basically a simple formula, but we use a lot of research to understand exactly what to do. It's a formula with plant enzymes and probiotics. But the factor that we've learned over 3 decades is that there are many, many different types of plant enzymes and many different types of probiotics. And when it comes to food, making sure that we have the right enzymes in the right amounts and the right probiotics and the right stabilization really is the key. So Optimal Digestion is the ultimate plant enzyme probiotic formula that you basically take with food. Whenever you're going to eat cooked and processed food, you take a Optimal Digestion capsule, and it will digest that food as if you're eating that food raw, which takes the pressure off the body. And I love talking about that formula because it really, anyone out there that says, oh, this is all just about trying to sell a formula, it's actually the opposite. What I'm telling people, and I've told them for decades, is eat more raw food. Chew your food, eat more raw food. End of story. If your diet was 100% raw food and you chewed your food well, then you're not going to need optimal digestion. So that's the answer. But if you choose to eat cooked or processed food, you're choosing to take the enzymes and the probiotics out. Choose to replenish by taking a capsule. And I think you guys were at the Big Doctor seminar last year that we were talking about this, that one of the athletes that from the NBA that a lot of people know, Kyrie Irving, is one of our clients. And Kyrie called up, and it was right before I went on stage there at the conference, and he was complaining about, Doug, I'm having to take too much of this optimal digestion. I'm having to take it all the time. I want to take less. And I'm like, awesome, Kyrie, you can take less. All you have to do is eat more raw food. I'm not telling you how many capsules of optimal digestion to take. You are by your lifestyle. If you want to take less, eat more raw food. And he got all upset, saying, dang it, I knew you were going to say that. You know, basically putting it back on him as his responsibility. And I think that that's really what we're trying to say is, look, let's be responsible. Let's eat more raw food. Let's chew our food well. But when we don't, just add back the enzymes as nature intended. And if we do that, we're going to lower our risk for disease. We're going to be able to improve our immunity. We're going to improve our health because nutrients are going to get delivered that weren't being delivered before. So optimal digestion is the answer. Second to eating raw food. So,
that is really powerful because that shows that your intent is not to sell supplements. It's to help people make the right decisions in their own life, and that they can be healthier without having to supplement. But if you choose otherwise, there is a resource out there to help you get through it.
That's right. And something I want to bring up here, you know, back in February, we were talking about one of your products called the 21-Day Challenge, and that was also digestion related as well. So how does that tie in? I know that was more for people who, you know, haven't necessarily been eating the best of foods, and they've destroyed the probiotics, the enzymes, and everything in their digestive system. So that kind of helps replenish that. How does that differ from the optimal digestion that we're talking about today?
That's a good question, because really it comes down to people that are just feeling all they need is a little bit of help with digestion. They understand the cooked food, processed food now. Then they take optimal digestion as they need and they go forward. But for those that say, you know what, I realize I do need to change my eating habits. I can see how I've created habits where I'm eating processed food too often and junk, and maybe got a little excess body fat. But every time I try to improve my health and, you know, eat healthier, I keep giving into my cravings. And so what's happened is those probiotics, those friendly bacteria in the body are craving, as would mention, the foods that they were raised on. And so the 21-Day Blitz Challenge basically combines the ability to have a program to help you reduce your cravings, reprogram your cravings by completely re-inoculating your bowel with a whole bunch of flora, at the same time taking optimal digestion. So basically we're completely changing the habits. We're giving your body the ability to not crave those foods anymore, to be able to make a complete lifestyle change at the same time as we're improving digestion. So to simplify it, if you take optimal digestion, you're adding back the enzymes and the probiotics that are missing from the food. The 21-Day Blitz Challenge is a complete program to help you change your habits and completely change the microbiome, not just add back into the food, but completely get rid of the bad microbiome that's craving the unhealthy foods and put a whole new layer of flora in your bowel so that you'll crave the healthier foods, and it's easier for you to make lifestyle changes. So optimal digestion is a daily thing we do. The 21-Day Blitz Challenge is 21 days of a complete lifestyle change, but we give you the tools to actually accomplish it when before you might have fell off because you gave into cravings, and it wasn't your fault. It's because your body was craving those foods, the microbiome was craving them, and we help change that around.
Very nice. So the 21-Day Challenge is like pushing the reset button. And optimal digestion is something that'll help you from day to day. If you have a healthy lifestyle, just need to add back some of those enzymes for some of the cooked foods and the other diet choices that you make. That makes a lot of sense.
That's a great way to put it, for sure.
Wonderful. So we're going to include the links to these two products in the resources for the podcast. Be sure to use the code OHS Wealth, and you can get 10% off your first order with Optimal Health Solutions. If you're having trouble figuring out which products to get, you can always contact us here at the office, 702-660-7000, and ask for John, and we can help you with that. You can also email me, john@wealthtalks.com, and we'll be able to help you get what you need here from Optimal Health Systems.
Doug, we just want to thank you again so much for lending your expertise to us this morning. Is there anything else you would like to leave our listeners with this morning?
Oh, well, I think that really, if I could, leave with one final message, kind of summing up these two podcasts, it is that in order for us to truly have a wealth in our life, we have to focus in on our individual health. And the best way to do that is to look at what the body does and how it was created in order to reach optimal health. And how it was created was for us to take in healthy foods, digest those foods, and so the nutrients can be delivered to the cells. And whether it's optimal digestion to help you when you eat cooked and processed foods, or the 21-day Blitz Challenge to help you reset, as you'd mentioned, the lifestyle and your habits, they're tools to help you get to the point where your body is working naturally and being able to act like it's supposed to from nature. And as we obey the laws of nature and respect them, then we'll have our health, which allows us to develop more wealth and enjoy that wealth as you're developing it and garnering it. So that's really the final message. And I really appreciate what you guys are doing, because very few groups out there are teaching the importance of both. And it's usually one or the other, and really they do go hand in hand. And so I acknowledge and admire you guys for doing that. It's a very important thing to do, is to help people understand both are important, and you need to go at them both with vigor and excitement.
Well, as you know, we're all about sustainable wealth, and there's no sense in building wealth and having to spend it all on sickness and illness when we get older. So it just makes sense to do both of those things along the journey, to keep yourself healthy so that you can enjoy the sustainability that you've created in your life.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Doug. It's always a pleasure having you on the show. You're listening to Wealth Talks, where we bring you the facts so you can thrive in life. Have a wonderful week.